Okay, chapter 12, section 2. I'm going to work a few problems for you. Number 1 on the homework says use the factor theorem to decide whether the second polynomial is a factor of the first. 5m squared plus 9m minus 44, and the second factor is m plus 4. So what we need to do is synthetically divide by negative 4. So it's 5, 9, negative 44. Going to drop that 5. Going to get negative 20, negative 11. Going to be 44 with a remainder of 0. The remainder of 0, then yes, it's a factor. Another way I could have checked that is I could have put it in my calculator. I could have put negative 4, now not m plus 4, not 4, but negative 4 in place of m. Could have put it in here. It's 5 times negative 4 squared plus 9 times negative 4 minus 44. And it equals 0. So you can do this either way. You can use synthetic division or you can check it on your calculator. The next one I'm going to do is one like number 4. It says factor into linear factors given that 2 is a 0. So they're telling you that 2 is a 0. So you are going to synthetically divide by 2. So we have 2 from here, leading coefficient, and then 3, and then negative 29, and then 30. So this gives me 2. 2 times 2 is 4, gives me 7. 7 times 2 is 14, gives me negative 15, negative 30, remainder 0. So synthetically divide, then remember this was degree 3, so now it's degree 2. 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. You can probably factor it. If you don't want to factor it, you can use the quadratic formula. But I'm going to factor this one into 2 linear factors. Factors of 2x squared are 2x and x. Factors of negative 15 are 1 and negative 15, or negative 1 and 15, 3 and negative 5, or negative 3 and 5. Now I'm going to go with this group. Of course, I already kind of know the answer, but I'm going to put the 5 here. 5 times 2 is going to give me 10. I know I need a positive number larger than 7 because that other number is going to be negative. So it's going to be, I'm going to check my work. 2 times x is 2x squared plus 10x minus 3x minus 15. Yes, that gives me 7 in the middle. So there are 2 of my linear factors. Now there's another one. Remember you were told that 2 was a factor. So if 2 is a factor, then that means that when x is 2, it works out. So what I really want to know was, well, what was in here, x plus or minus something, right before you got x equal 2? Well, it had to be x minus 2, so that when you added 2 to both sides, you got x equals 2. So that third factor is x minus 2. So my answer here is x minus 2, 2x minus 3, and x plus 5. The next one I'm going to work is number 6, or one like number 6 for you. And it says given that 4 is a 0 of the polynomial, find the remaining. So I'm going to synthetically divide by 4. And that's going to give me that. I'm going to get 0 as a remainder. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 18 that I need to factor. Well, I'm going to do this one by the quadratic formula. So a is 1, b is negative 6, and c is 18. And the quadratic formula says negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I'm going to plug my values in. So it's negative 6. So it's 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 minus 4 times 1 times 18 over 2 times 1. When I simplify under the radical, 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 36 over 2. Well, the square root of negative 36 is an imaginary number. It's 6i. So it's 6 plus or minus 6i over 2. When I simplify that, I get 3 plus or minus 3i. So what you have here are two of your factors. Okay, so I'm going to take that over here. You have 3 plus 3i, and you have 3 minus 3i. But you had an original one. Remember they told you that 4 was a 0. So we have to figure out that other factor. So that means that x equaled 4. You know for sure x equaled 4. Well, right before x equaled 4, what equaled 0? It had to be x minus 4. So that remaining factor here is x minus 4. Now, okay, the question didn't ask for you to find anything except the extra 2. So you don't need that there, but you might need it here. I want to also tell you that these are called conjugates. You know, when you're solving this way, you're going to get conjugate answers, and you're going to need to know that in a question or two. Maybe for the number 7, you're going to need to be able to, if they tell you that 5 plus 3i is a solution, then you already know this has to be 1, 2, that they come in pairs. Don't forget about that. Going to need it. Okay, now I'm going to work number 8. It says, what are the rational zeros of this function? And so I've written the function here, and I put a box around the leading coefficient. I put a heart around the constant at the end. And if you will list the factors of heart over box, you will have all the possible factors or rational zeros, not possible factors, but possible rational zeros for this problem. So the factors of 1 are plus or minus 1. The factors of negative 10 are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5, and plus or minus 10. Because you can get negative 10 by doing 1 times negative 10, negative 1 times 10, 2 times negative 5, negative 2 times 5. Now I'm going to make my possibilities. I'm going to take positive or negative 1 over 1, which is 1. Positive or negative 2 over 1. Positive or negative 5 over 1. Positive or negative 10 over 1. So my possible rational zeros are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10. Well, which ones work? I mean, they're not all going to work because it's degree 3. It only has 3 of them. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to make it a lot easier on myself. I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to put this in y equals x to the third minus 8x squared plus 17x, oh, I didn't mean to do that, x minus 10. And I'm going to go to the table. Now, this is going to work real good for me because all these numbers are whole numbers. If I didn't have that, if I had 3/5 over here, then I wouldn't be going and putting it in y equals. I'd be testing that 3/5 in place of x each time. Okay, I'm going to show you that too here in a second. So I'm going to go test 1. At 1, I get a 0, so that one works. That's one of them. And there's 2. 2 works too. So I'm looking for things that have 0 in y. And 5 works. And 10, it better not work, and it doesn't work. Now, what if I didn't have nice, pretty numbers here? Then I would be taking x to the third power, but I'd be testing numbers like 1 minus 8 times 1 squared plus 17 times 1 minus 10. And I'd get 0, so I'd know it worked. Now, I'd test negative 1 by doing this. Negative 1 cubed minus 8 times negative 1 squared plus 17 times negative 1 minus 10. It did not work. So the one that worked was 1. I need to be clear. The ones that worked were positive here. So those are the 3 that worked. So choose the possibles. Okay, the possibles are that group. Choose the ones that work. That group. Choose the factors. Okay, guys. X equals 1. Well, what happened right before x was 1? What equaled 0 before x equaled 1? X minus 1. X is 2. Well, what happened right before that. When it was equal to 0, it was x minus 2. X equaled 5, so it was x minus 5 equals 0. So those are your factors. Now right in the middle of all this difficult stuff, they throw in this about multiplicities. It's a pretty easy concept. This one's already factored. It asks you for the multiplicities. Well, you're going to set x minus 1 equal to 0. X is going to equal 1. You've got 3 groups of that, so it has a multiplicity of 3. Then 9x plus 5 equals 0. We're going to solve. X is negative 5/9 with the multiplicity of 1. I don't think they list the multiplicities if they're just 1. They only do that if it's more than 1. X squared minus 4 equals 0. X squared equals 4. Take the square root. X is equal to positive 2 or negative 2, each of which only have a multiplicity of 1. So the correct answer here is C. Okay? Okay, the last one I'm going to work from this section is number 12, and it says to find a cubic polynomial in standard form with real coefficients having the zeros 4 and 9i. Well, if 4 is a 0, then x minus 4 was a factor. If 9i is a 0, so is negative 9i, and x minus 9i was a factor, and x plus 9i was a factor. Now I've got to multiply these together. I'm going to start with this group because it's going to lead me to the difference of squares. So this is going to be, I'm going to leave x minus 4 here, x squared plus 9ix minus 9ix minus 81i squared. Now when I simplify this, these are going to cancel. And remember, I squared is negative 1, so that's really plus 81. We'll FOIL again. X cubed plus 81x minus 4x squared minus 324. I'm going to put it in the right order. X cubed minus 4x squared plus 18x minus 324. And that's our answer for 12.